Hey, well, it's my pleasure to welcome Juda Meyer, the founder of Choices for Life. Welcome to the King's Report.
Thank you so much for inviting me.
Yeah. Well, some of our listeners know you, but why don't you introduce a little bit about yourself and why you started Choices for Life?
Well, Choices for Life started because there was no organization that was helping specifically females who were pregnant after rape. A
Mm,
lot of people feel like once you're raped, that's the reason you should have an abortion. But the mothers were needing help because they wanted to keep their children. They believed that God was the one who had placed that child in their womb and not the rapist, because
mm,
we know rapists don't make babies.
right,
God is our creator. And
right.
so my own mother was raped by 8 men on a street corner and was forced to place me for adoption because her parents wanted me dead. Now, I was conceived in 56 and born in 57. Abortion supposedly wasn't legal, but they had found a doctor that said, "Oh, I'll take care of it." But I love my mom because she said, "You will not take care of it because it is my baby." And
Mm,
so she fought to keep me, but she knew that she wouldn't be able to raise me because of her parents. She was 22 and living with her parents at the time. So
mm,
she placed me for adoption. And the lady that was it was Catholic Charities that um, she went to, and they didn't want her to see me. But there was an older woman that snuck me to her. So she got 2 weeks to
mm,
hold me and bond with me. And then
mm,
she had to leave. So at 3 months, they sent her a note saying that I had been adopted to a good family and not to worry. She prayed for 48 years. And to make a long story short, I found her 48 years later. And she said she had been praying for all those 48 years to have me return to her. She said I was the only reason that she wanted to live.
mm,
And that's the case with a lot of these women.
mm,
What good was that rape? Nothing. Horrible. And then you have a baby. It doesn't remind them of the rapist. It reminded my mother, she said, of God intervening and specifically giving her a gift that only He could give, that was a part of her.
mm,
And so I asked God, so what are you going to do about this? There's no organizations. There are organizations, but they don't understand specifically,
mm,
like my mom.
right.
And He says, what are you going to do about it? So when you ask God, what are you going to do about it? A lot of times be careful because He's going to turn it back on you.
That's a dangerous question.
It is. So that's how it began in 2011. And most recently, I have turned it over to a gentleman named Kevin Fobbs. He is very politically active and fighting for the rights of the unborn. So I'm looking forward to some really exciting things because of his presidency, and I'll be there as an advisor.
Right.
But we are the website, if anybody's interested or they need help, is choices, the number 4life.org.
Okay, let me show this to the audience. I think they'll, yeah, let me just, yeah, choicesforlife.org. And this is, anyway, you've got a lot of stories here about other women who conceived childs as a result of rape. And yeah, there are a lot of stories here. You have what, talk radio? Oh, you have a lot of
Those
radio.
were pre-recorded.
Okay, so people can listen to those interviews, I guess, and
Yes,
yeah,
because they are so powerful listening to the women themselves.
right.
We can all talk for them and assume what they believe, but when they start talking, there's
Mm,
no argument.
right, exactly. And then you have a blog here, a lot of essays here. Oh, this is
People
yours.
would be surprised to know that they probably know of a rape conceived person, but that person just was not able to share. I have been told many, many, many times, people are just ashamed to say that they were conceived in rape. And
Yeah,
I'm not ashamed because I didn't have anything to do with that. I
right.
ask people, would you like to be, like right now, would you like to be picked up by the police and said you have to be executed because of a crime your father did before you were born. And they say, well, of course not. And I said, well, neither do I.
Okay. Now, I saw that you gave a talk at Harvard University. I'm just curious, were there students in the room who were not necessarily pro-life?
Well, the odd thing about a lot of the people I've spoken to, they are pro-life. They
Yeah.
are advocating, they are protesting, they are petitioning legislators, but
Right.
not for the case of rape. And
Yeah.
so I remember talking to one person, and she said she was a Christian, and she said that she was pro-life except in the cases of rape. And I said, so why do you think I should die? And she says, well, I'm not saying you should die. And I said, yes, you are, because I was conceived in rape. And she looked at me and was in such shock. Her eyes just bulged with tears. And she said, I never put a face to it. And
Mm.
so that's what I ask people. Do I look like somebody that just needs to be executed? You don't know me. You just walk up to me and you say, you should be executed. Would
Mm.
you do that to anybody? No, of course
No.
not.
Mm.
But that's what you're doing to
Right.
those babies conceived in rape. And when those babies are born, I guarantee that not one person can tag a baby and say, this one was conceived in rape and this one was not.
Right. Right. Yeah. Okay. I wouldn't want to debate you because I would definitely lose.
I've just given so many logical reasons why I should not be executed for the crime of another.
Right. Yeah.
And conception does not start till after the man leaves. So I wasn't even at the scene of the crime.
Yeah. That's right. That's
And
right.
so I keep telling people, this is the greatest injustice. And
Right.
another thing, if God is the creator of all life, then you're actually coming against him because he was the only one who wanted me in that womb. My mother didn't want a baby through rape. My mother, she loved children, but that's not the way women want to conceive children. And so the fact that the rapist can't create a child is you're leaving it only up to God.
Yeah. If you look at the Bible, I'm sure you know the story of Tamar, who conceived, her husband died, and then the brother who's supposed to marry her after her husband died, he died. Okay. And then
They all
after that, the father-in-law didn't want to have any of his sons do anything with her, but she conceived through adultery with her father-in-law, right? And that is in the lineage of Jesus Christ, right? That is the lineage of Jesus Christ
yeah.
conceived through adultery. So I think theologically, God does work in
Mysterious ways.
exactly, yeah, absolutely,
Yeah. It's not our ways.
yeah,
Certainly I wouldn't have chosen to be conceived in rape. Who
right,
does? But nobody has that choice.
yeah,
You know, who on earth had a choice of how they were conceived? Zero.
that's true, that's right,
But then why condemn me for something I had no choice in?
right,
It's just a bizarre thing when you step aside and look at how society looks at the rape conceived. Everybody
yeah,
in every society
right.
agrees the rape conceived is worthless.
Yeah, yeah, that is, yeah, I think you're right. Yeah. Okay, well, let's get on to, okay, 1 year ago, Roe versus Wade was overturned by the Supreme Court. And what do you think, what has happened since that decision was made or announced?
I believe there are 15 states that have no exceptions, that trigger law threw it back, that they went back to their original status. Texas, for instance, where I live, has an exception for life of the mother. they no longer have exceptions for rape. And so I'm grateful for that. I know that a lot of people are upset because there's doctors that won't help a woman who's having a miscarriage. I mean, I think that that is extreme. They should be helping the woman save the baby and the mother. If that philosophy would just be embraced, there would be more children and women saved.
I mean, look, the birth rate, I mean, just looking at the macro for a second, the birth rate in America is declining, and we're not even having enough children to replace the population, except for the immigration, which is a whole nother issue. But in many countries in Europe, it's in a death spiral. You've got a lot of old people, very few young people, and the future of those countries is very, very not good. So I think there are countries that are begging the women, paying them, trying to bribe them to have children. And, some people, except for, I guess, there is a radical environmental movement that thinks we have to eliminate 80 or 90% of the world's population. Except for them, most people realize that having children is a good thing. And, but I guess a lot of people don't think about it.
Well, in New York, I heard that the Black culture is in a spiral down because there are more abortions than there are births.
Right, exactly.
In New York.
Yeah.
That's so sad.
It is sad. I mean, some people call that a type of genocide, but anyway.
It is a genocide when you're killing a group of people. If you're going to go by the Webster Dictionary.
Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
that's what that's called.
Yeah.
Sadly.
So what's happening? What's happening in other states?
Sorry, go ahead.
But what's happening in other states around the country, would you say?
Well, they have the exception. In the very, very beginning of abortion, do you know that it was Mississippi that on Mother's Day in 1966, they established rape as a reason for abortion. This is before Roe v. Wade. So here you go. You got Mississippi and then Colorado in 67. Then you go to New York and Hawaii, and it was like a domino effect until 1973 when it blew up and everybody got to have abortions on demand. So it started with the rape conception. And so I tell people, when you decide that all human life is valuable and created in the image of God, if you believe that and you act upon it, that will stop legal abortions. There always is going to be murder. Always. There's nothing we can do about it. Our Creator dealt with murder in the very beginning with Cain and Abel. We're not going to stop that because evil is going to be here until Yeshua, our Messiah, comes back. And so we can work to prevent most people from committing murder. If we make it easy for a woman to commit murder and she's not fully understanding what she is doing, she will live to regret it later, whether it's for health reasons, whether it's mental reasons. And do you remember Lorena Bobbitt?
Yes, I do. Yes.
Okay. So she cut her husband's genitals off on the anniversary of her abortion, not even knowing. He was the one who had forced her to have an abortion years prior. And I believe it's Mark Crutcher of Life Dynamics, who had an attorney call him. It was Lorena Bobbitt's attorney, had him, he called Mark and said, is it really true that people have after effects, like years later, they'll do things on the date of their abortion without remembering? And he said, absolutely. And so he went and asked Lorena, did you ever have an abortion? She said, yes. What does that have to do with anything? When did you have an abortion? I don't know. Well, can you look it up? Do you have any way of researching and seeing what that exact date was? She looked it up, and the exact date was the date that she flipped out on her husband. but not even knowing that that was the anniversary. So there are things and repercussions in our mental, in our brain, and our mental capacity, in our body that remembers that murder.
Mm.
And we can't escape that. I mean, we can think that we escape and we can function day to day, but that's always hanging over us unless you turn your life to Messiah
Right.
and confess your sin, and he forgives you. Otherwise, you're going to have to pay for it one way or the other.
Right. Yeah. So I imagine that after people hear you and other speakers from Choices for Life, I'm sure a lot of people change their minds, or you've given them a lot to think about. That's for sure. I bet. Yeah. And
They
then
do, they do think a lot about it, but then you can tell who has a heart. The
right,
ones with the heart just melt, and oh my goodness, I never thought of it that way. And they're
right,
humble, and they're
right,
just broken. But the ones that are dead set on that murderous spirit, they will say, you should have been aborted. They'll say that to my face.
they say that to you.
Yes, sir.
That is pretty. That
You
is.
know,
Uh,
there are satanic churches that have popped up in America. Now
mm,
they're saying that abortion is their right because it's part of their ceremonies and part of, no kidding. We've been saying that for eons. It's demonic.
yeah, yeah. I mean, I've heard stories. Yeah, that they consider abortion to be a sacrament or a rite.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I know people who have gone through the, satanic rituals,
Really.
caused to be pregnant, they were raped, and then held, and then like at 7 months, the baby was taken and then offered as a sacrifice. I have heard so many different stories that,
Mm.
oh my goodness. Um,
Okay. I mean, whenever I hear, I mean, but you've actually spoken to women who experienced that.
yes, sir.
Wow. Wow.
Yes, sir. And more than one, sadly.
Wow.
Some of the things that I can't even repeat because they are so gory and so
Yeah.
horrific
Wow.
that you couldn't even stand listening to it, much less going through it. So when you hear people blowing it off, oh, that's just Christians imagining the demons after them. No, they
Mm,
really do exist,
mm.
and they really are progressing. Like you've got satanic things popping up all over the country, blatant, like satanic priestesses and satanic priests who have no problem telling you who they are.
That's true. They're not even trying to hide it. Yeah.
Nope, not trying to hide it anymore. I equate this time as, at the end of a fireworks show, the time is at the end and they may have a few fireworks left. So they're going to throw everything up in the air at the last moment and just make this big display.
Right.
I personally think that Satan is doing that right now with all of his
Yeah.
evil, because it's the worst that I've ever seen. And
No, I mean,
I'm
yeah,
66, so I've seen a whole lot over the past few years that have changed tremendously. We're not in a good place.
I mean, it does seem that Satan really is like shooting all the fireworks. I think that's a great analogy. Actually, it can be scary. If you do not believe in God, then it would be, you feel like
I
you want
can't
to crawl in a
imagine.
hole.
Yeah, I can't imagine
Yeah,
how people cope.
yeah.
It's just too much there. But as
Well,
far as the abortion being completely eliminated, I don't see it ever happening because people will do whatever they need to do to get rid of a baby, sadly,
yeah.
whether it's legal or not.
Have you spoken on college campuses? Because it does seem that the so-called reproductive rights agenda is very strong on college campuses. And I'm just curious, if so, what was your experience?
So this is what I tell them. There has never been a law against reproduction. You can reproduce your kind as often as you can.
Mm.
Nobody's going to say you can only have 2 children. We're not in communist China, right?
Right,
You
right,
can have 15, you can have 20, whatever your body is capable of doing, you can reproduce as much as you want. See, what you're fighting for is destructive rights,
right,
not reproductive rights.
right.
So if you'll be honest with yourself, this is what I'm telling them. If you'll be honest with yourself, what you're fighting for is destructive, not reproductive.
Yeah, I mean, the left is actually very creative and clever when
With
using
their words.
the terminology.
And then I ask them, if you're inconvenient to me, can I abort you? Because if this is all about inconvenience, there's a
Right,
lot of people in this world that inconvenience us. So how is it that we can pick and choose? If I'm carrying a child in my arms, she's on my body. Can I just throw her in a ditch because she inconvenienced me? My body, my choice? Of course not. And so I told people, stop being illogical.
right.
The science proves that it's a child in your womb. If you can't throw a child in the garbage in your arms, then what makes in the womb different?
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm kind of hard on those people who are blatantly for murder. And I don't like using abortion to them. I will flat out say it's murder.
Right,
What's your choice? Choice to eliminate the life of the unborn human.
right,
It's not a choice to end a pregnancy. What's a pregnancy? Pregnancy is a baby.
right. Yeah.
I'm just like that. I'm just straightforward, tell it like it is. You know, it might hurt, but maybe if you change, then you'll be better in the end.
You know, I saw an interview with one college student who, after Roe v. Wade was overturned, and she says she's complaining. Oh, and now I have to be very selective about who I have sex with because
Wow. Okay. One, you should be doing that anyways. And two, you should do it within a marriage where the guy's committing to you. Because um, if you don't have that commitment, then you don't have anything.
right. No, I mean, I mean, at least she was being honest, right? She was,
True, true.
yeah. Well, are there any other things that you want our listeners to know about? This is 1 year anniversary of the overturning of Roe v. Wade. Is there anything else that you want them to know?
I just want them to know that you probably have met a rape conceived person and you don't know it because we're not carrying signs. You know, we don't have a big C on our forehead, you know, so that you can identify us. There are people like athletes. There are newscasters. If you go to my site, you're going to see several of the famous people that you go, oh, really? How about Frederick Douglass? He was the son of a slave rape.
Mm,
He's magnificent. Oh my goodness. He had heads of state and countries
right,
in his council.
right,
Um,
right.
there's not something that happens in our DNA. For instance, most of the people that I know that were conceived in rape have some gift. And
Mm,
I'm not trying to brag on this. I'm just saying we have things that other people don't. I'm an artist. I sing. I write songs. I'm a paint artist as well. I've got a lot of gifts that I didn't do myself. I'm not bragging. This is just a gift from God. And I look at other people. There was a woman who was conceived in a mental home because her mother was in a mental home and a staff member raped her. They
mm,
wanted to abort her, but her grandparents refused to let them abort that child. She is the best artist. Oh my gosh, she is just so talented, incredible. I know military, I know police officers, I know. Look at James Robison. He was conceived in rape. There are so many people that we don't know that are doing so many wonderful things.
mm,
You know, a doctor. You know, what if a doctor saved your life, happened to be rape conceived, but you wanted to abort that child?
right.
So that old adage, you know, maybe there was somebody to take care of or end cancer,
Mhm.
and you kill that person. Well, the rape conceived are in that group too, because we're human. And that's what I want people to realize.
Mm. Wow. Okay. I mean, you're irrefutable.
Because he
Right.
creates laws that
Right.
don't change.
Right.
And humans can pretend that they can create life, but they're taking life that he's created and, you know, rearranging the puzzle pieces.
Right. Yeah.
And when it comes to aborting a child conceived in his image, I think Satan is very, very diligent in destroying the image of God, because here we have homosexuals. We have people now who don't even know what their gender is, even
Right.
looking at their body.
Right.
And one thing is that scripture says if you deny the truth, he will turn you over to a delusional spirit. I am seeing delusion here like I've never seen it before.
Yes.
And so this is what's happening. We are witnessing a complete rejection, rebellion of the God of all creation. That's all there is to it. He's the creator. This world is not some blob that went poof and we're here. So, Second Chronicles 7:14 says, if my people who are called by my name will humble themselves and pray and turn from their wicked ways, I will hear from heaven and I will heal your land. And that's what we need from people right now. We can fix circumstances and we can put band-aids on those, but the ultimate thing is getting back to our creator. Because in the end, we're going to return to him and we're going to face a holy God who's not going to take excuses.
That's
I
true.
personally am not willing to take that chance. And so I study to show myself approved of God and men, and to find out what exactly pleases him. And in doing so, I find joy. So it's not a burden. It's not bondage. It's not a cult. It's not crazy. I'm better off for serving him. And that's the sermon of the day. I'm
All
sorry.
right. Well, I'm inspired.
I know who I am because he made me on purpose. Nobody is a mistake.
Right. That's right. All right. Well, thank you for coming on the King's Report. And I'd like to encourage everyone to learn more about the work of Judah Myers and go to choicesforlife.org, and they can find a way to, choices4life.org. And they're doing great work.
Thank you.
Yeah, God bless you. And thank
You
you.
too.
Thank you for coming on today.
Thank you so much for all you're doing, making people aware.
All right. Thank you. All right, bye-bye. All right. Let me